Hello everybody now. This video is going to be, of course, saying why. Why is it that Arab and Muslim countries have access to our society, to our great American society, the Western civilization? Why do they have access to our society? Why? To American society. Why do they have access to our society, but we have no access to their society, basically? And they, of course, help to influence our activism here, helping to, of course, peddle radical Islam in because they seek to conquer us from within. I mean, like Saudi Arabia, for example, is the leader in this effort because Saudi Arabia is one of the so-called moderate Arab countries and all that. Saudi Arabia is one of the so-called moderate Arab countries. So, of course, and yet they don't behave moderately because, I mean, Saudi Arabia builds mosques and madrasas around the world, funds them, and controls them. They've built, fund, and control mosques and madrasas around the world that incite radical Islam. That basically incite their fellow Muslims to go to carry out a jihad on infidels and to conquer the world for Islam. And they basically incite Muslims to believe in the same basic ideology that Bin Laden believes in. Of course, Bin Laden criticizes this. He doesn't like the Saudi regime not because of how oppressive it is, but because they allow American soldiers inside their territory. And Bin Laden regards it, of course, as infidel troops on holy Islamic land, as infidel troops desecrating Islamic lands. But the point is, they have an access to our society, and we have no access to their society. I mean, this is insane, and we're supposed to be silent about it because political correctness wants us to be silent about it, or else we're bigots, racists, Islamophobes, and I mean, that's basically what's going on. That's basically what's going on. If we say anything about we're biggest racist Islamophobes, it's like we're biggest racist Islamophobes if we say the sky is blue, basically. I mean, that's what it's like. Or if we say the earth is round. I mean, that's what it's like. That's what it's like. I mean, you talk about, but we're just basically saying the obvious of what's going on over there. But too many people here are too ignorant because we have too many of these liberals who of course, who can't, who seem unable to get along with the facts because the facts contradict their demented way of thinking. The facts contradict their demented way of thinking, so that's why. So that's why they're unable to get along with the facts, and because the facts don't just say everything's America's fault, basically. The facts don't just blame America, because the world's far more complicated than, oh, everything's America's fault, everything's America's fault, it rains because it's America's fault. You know, the facts are far more complicated than that. And they're far more complicated than, oh, everything's Bush's fault, the rain rains because Bush's fault. I mean, of course, you see, sometimes liberals attack Bush even though he's no longer president, but why is it that Saudi Arabia has one access society, it's a one-sided access to our society, and I mean, we have to find alternatives to oil, and even, of course, carefully drill from Anwar. I'm all for carefully drilling from Anwar, but we have to be less dependent on foreign oil. We have to be less dependent on we have to be less dependent on foreign oil. We have to be less dependent on foreign oil. You see, we have to be less dependent on foreign oil because, of course, I mean, these demented radical Islamic countries depend on these demented radical Islamic countries depend on our technology. They depend on our technology, of course, and we have to close the door to them influencing them. We have to say up. We have to stand up to Saudi Arabia and say enough is enough. You want to be considered moderate? You behave moderately. You want to be considered moderate? You behave moderately. That's what we tell them. You want to be considered moderate? Behave like one. But you see, many people in the West are so stupid. I mean, even after 9/11, many people in the West are still asleep. Basically, are still asleep to the threat of radical Islam. I mean, how many more innocent people have to die before we realize this threat and before we actually stand up to it for real? Before we really have to stand up to it. But I mean, this is insane because we're too dependent on their oil and we're unable to stand up to Saudi Arabia. We are unable to stand up to Saudi Arabia. For example, our current president Barack Obama was done a lot of appeasing to our enemies, we've done a lot of apology toward. I mean, I'm a critic of this policy. Our President Barack Obama bowed to the Saudi king. That's basically, that's basically bowing for the supremacy of their demented form of Islam. That's basically bowing to their supremacy of their demented form of Islam, because in the radical Islamic view, I think in the Saudi regime's view, it's a dhimmi, it's an infidel, bowing to the true religion, basically. So, and it shows weakness in us, and that's what it is. That's what it is. That's what it is. It's the truth. This is the truth. It's politically correct, but this is the truth. So we have to say enough is enough, and we have to say, and we have to basically, and we have to say no more to having these mosques that incite jihad. We have to cut these Saudi funds, freeze their assets. We have to freeze their assets. We have to freeze their assets and be less dependent on oil and say, look, we're America. We're not going to tolerate this crap. It's time for us to say that. It's time for us to say that. Because we are the great superpower, and we can't even fight a force that's invading us from within. I mean, this is insane. This is so freaking insane. I mean, wake up. Wake up. Wake up. This can be seen like as easily as the earth being round, except believing that the earth is flat. I mean, that's just ignorance and not putting our freedom and democracy in peril. That's just ignorance. That's all it is. It's just ignorance. It's not putting our freedom and democracy in peril like this radical Islamic threat is. So, knowing the threat from denying the threat from radical Islam is even worse than denying that the earth is round, because denying that the earth is round is just ignorance. That's all it is. That's all it is. And everyone knows it's ignorance. Everyone knows it's ignorance. Pretty much everyone knows it's ignorance. But we have to fight against this threat, of course, and with all these imams who incite radicalism, we have to at least ship them back. We have to at least ship them out of this country back to where they came from. Of course, ship them back to all these Muslim and Arab dictatorships, basically. Like, for example, and say, look, you want our freedoms? Don't bring this hate speech. Don't bring this hate speech to our great nation. Don't bring this hate speech to our great nation. Because if we let them, if we give these demented preachers free speech rights, it'll be at our own peril. It's going to be at our own peril. And we have to defend our democracy. We have to defend our democracy, and it's not going to be pretty. Well, if it is pretty, it'll be great, but it's not all. We can't guarantee that it'll always be pretty. We, of course, while we waterboard, when we allocated terrorists, we see many these liberals saying, oh my god, these terrorists got waterboarded, oh my god. But and they're totally silent on like these Islamo-Fascists, on the far worse trends by Islamo-Fascists, and publicly beheading people like Daniel Brown for the cameras, publicly hanging people like what Iran does to homosexuals, and what, of course, these Palestinian terrorists who the Palestinians suspected of collaborating with Israel. Of course, like when it comes to hijacking planes and crashing into the Twin Towers, that's what happened on 9/11, basically, or like like sending suicide bombers and terrorists all over the world. Wherever radical Islam influences, you basically see a conflict there. You see a bloody conflict there. Like, look, pretty much it's a global threat now. India's facing this problem, Israel's facing this problem, America's facing this problem, Europe is facing this problem. Pretty much, this is now a global threat, basically. This is a global threat, of course. And of course, Islamo-Fascism kills innocent Muslims as well as non-Muslims. And we are letting them have too much influence in our societies. We're letting them have too much influence into our societies because, well, too many of us are too stupid to know what's going on, or to be nicer, to say naive. But too many of us are naive, and we have to wake up. We have to wake up we have to wake up. We have to wake up before another 9/11 comes. We have to wake up before another 9/11 comes. How many more innocent people have to die? That's the question. How many more innocent people have to die before? How many more of us have to die before this country finally wakes up? Before this great country, America, finally wakes up? Before European countries wake up? How many more innocent people have to die? How many more? I mean, I hope the answer is zero. I really hope the answer is zero. I hope the answer is zero. Anyway, I just hope the answer is zero.